Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, what I wanted to do was discuss the difficulties of losing weight, or why is losing weight so hard, as told by Reddit. I think because we are currently going into a time frame where it's difficult to lose weight for the vast majority of people, especially in the northern hemisphere. There are seasonal factors, there's holidays, so there's social factors. There's a lot of different things going on at this time of the year, to where the natural tendency of people is to give up completely, not try at all, right? Like just go ahead and just go hog wild, basically, especially after Halloween. And last year, I gained a lot of weight in November. It was more so for hormonal reasons. I had an intense, insatiable hunger in November. And I haven't really had that this year, but I still have had more of a mental desire to stop. But I still have a lot of like financial pressures, activistic pressures, right? I have a lot of, there's personal reasons. There's a lot of different reasons why I need to continue to lose weight. So I have a lot of different leverages against me towards keeping me on path. So I want to go ahead and talk about how we handle it when it is hard, how I'm handling it when it's hard, because it is. You know, my hormones are definitely a little edgy. And I don't get hungry all the time, but like I feel it a little bit tonight, you know? It's like I feel it a little. I'll probably have to have some salt tonight, because for my hypothyroidism, I've had to really do some hypo rescue stuff recently. So it's definitely getting harder. And I noticed like a lot of people, they just quit, basically. But anyways, let's continue. I don't want to repeat myself too much. Why is losing weight so hard? I start off strong and then it all goes downhill. I start counting calories and then I stop. I get too hungry and then eat too much. Why is losing weight so hard? I wish I never gained this much weight in the first place. I feel like I'm never going to lose the weight. I miss being my old self and feeling confident in my body. No one tells you how easy it is to gain weight and how hard it is to lose it. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to just tell this person, which they have deleted it, I guess, this mindset is trash. Realistically, it's actually difficult to gain the weight too. What our bodies want to do more than anything is to maintain. Your body in its natural state wants to maintain a sort of homeostasis. It wants to maintain weight. That's the least stressful way to be. However, when our eyes are bigger than our stomachs, when we have hormonal issues, when we have toxic ritualistic behaviors, we can tend to eat more. And when that happens, our bodies cope with it. Just like if we eat less, our bodies cope with it. So I do think that there is this narrative that gaining weight is so easy and losing weight is so difficult. What I will say is it's very easy to put on water. That's easy. Gaining weight, however, it takes a lot of food. It takes a lot of sustained overeating over a long period of time, just like losing weight takes a sustained effort of eating less calories over a long period of time. It works both ways. There are a lot of people who struggle to gain weight for that reason. So I would say that this is already wrong. It's the wrong way to think about it. This part, I wish I never gained this much weight. I feel you there. I really, really do. I wish I didn't have to lose this weight. It's been pretty miserable. I'm not going to lie. But like I've told you guys many times, it's miserable to have the weight on you. It's miserable to get it off. That's just how it is. So that I can agree with. But it's difficult for the body to change regardless. Even if you're building muscle, it's difficult. It takes work to change your body, unless if you're in a situation where you're being forced to do something, like if you're forced to not eat, for example, then it would be quote unquote easier, but not really. Your body would still have to cope So your body is always coping with whatever change you're trying to do. And I think it's important to keep that perspective in mind, and that it is also the case in gaining weight. You know, when I was eating a lot more over Halloween, it was very expensive. There's a lot of effort that goes into working to make the money to eat more. And I don't think people acknowledge that whatsoever. The other thing is, it was tough physically. You know, I was trying to eat as much as I could in those 2 days to bring my appetite down. And it did work. It did, because I got kind of disgusted. I reached a point of disgust in my brain as I was eating so much. Because I was getting really hungry before Halloween. So I was like, I have to kind of do something, or this is going to happen again in November. So I did it. I kind of shocked it. I shocked my system a little bit over those 2 days. And I just, whatever I wanted to eat, I ate it. But like I said, it costs a lot of money. I didn't feel sick or anything, but I was like, you know, my whole days were like revolving around food and eating. So it's like, it is effort. It is. If I were to actively like be gaining weight, it would take effort, because the food doesn't come from air. Like, the food comes from somewhere, and you have to like provide that, for one. And secondly, like, that feeling of disgust was building in my brain over those 2 days. So if I were to keep pushing past it and keep pushing, that would be hard. It would take effort. You know, if our bodies are not developing any sense of satiety or any sense of disgust or anything, if we're eating a lot of calories, there's something wrong. So I think that that's another reason why it's hard for a lot of people, is that they have hormonal issues that are untreated. Because if you didn't, you would get full, and it would take effort. How do I know? Because that's how I felt. I felt relieved to go back to my deficit, because although I liked, you know, the taste of stuff, it was a lot of effort, honestly. You know, it depends on your perspective. Like, I do intermittent fasting sometimes because it's easy. It's easier. I don't think about food. I don't have to think about food. I can focus on other things like work and filming and whatever else. I can focus on other stuff. I can focus on my financial goals. I can focus on other things because I'm not thinking about food all the time. You know? Like, let's be real. However, it is boring. I am bored a lot with this. Like, I am wanting to eat because I'm bored sometimes, you know? Because like I said, the flavor side of it, it's just like, yeah, I'm a little bored sometimes. I'm not going to lie. Like, but it's a huge trigger, and you can't give in to that, because that's a disaster. Okay. Weight loss feels like a mental challenge instead of a physical one for me. Even though I'm not even close to my goal weight, I'm grateful about how much I lost. I found this line of thinking helps keep me centered in a sense. I'm still obese and a long way off. Time will let me know if it's a good strategy. I think it depends on how big you are. If you're really, really big, you're going to notice the physical challenge very easily. It'll actually probably be so loud that that's all you're going to be able to notice. So, but like I said, for me personally, in the morbid obese stage, the mental struggle became the forefront, because all those mental issues that I honestly had to just put to the side to get to a physical stability, they came rushing to the surface at that time. And that was a lot of work. And then now I'm beyond that. And so now it's like, it's just, the only real like struggle I have is a feeling of boredom, or a feeling of like, a feeling of boredom, and a feeling of like a lack of fun. I don't know how else to say it. I guess it's just boredom, I guess. But that's what I struggle with a lot within just obesity, is a lack of stimulation. And I try to find other ways of stimulating, so to speak, and try to keep as busy as I can, because when you're in a deficit and you're eating less, it's like, you know, you're just not eating as much. So it's like, oh gosh, like I said, if I do intermittent fasting, for example, I could not eat from like 1 p.m. until the next morning or something like that. So all those hours I'm not eating. There's no like stimulation from that. So I think it has to be made up in other ways. But even if I'm not intermittent fasting, it's still like, I don't know, like I said, you have sometimes the fear of missing out, or a fear of like, oh gosh, like what am I doing? Like you kind of feel the sacrifice of it, in my opinion. That's how I feel a lot in obesity, is like, well, it's fun. Well, eating is fun, and I want to eat because it's fun. You see? And it's not that I would overeat. I probably would just eat to maintenance, honestly, at this level. Like, of this level of health. I don't have the toxic ritualistic, all these different things. But in losing weight, it is work. And so it's like, oh, this is work. This isn't fun. And that's what I struggle with the most, is that feeling. And I have to just kind of tell myself, like, it's just not a fun time. And I just kind of accept it. And to be honest, my life isn't very fun in a lot of ways at this moment. It's really just a lot of brute force hard work, including the deficit, but also financially and, work-wise and all these things, and going to the gym and all these things. I'm honestly just working a lot. So I don't know if that helps, because I can kind of frame it in my mind as just a part of an overall hardworking, boring time of my life, where there will be a payoff in the future for all this work. And I'm making real progress in all these different areas, but I have to not necessarily live for the moment. And I think that that's really hard for a lot of people. I really do. Because especially when we get to the holidays and stuff, it's easy to live for the moment, and people want to. And that's what, honestly, a lot of fat acceptance is about. They push that a lot. So anyways, let's continue. I'm just going to get out my frustrations in this video. It's kind of a random one, just stream of consciousness, late night, I'm trying to film tonight so I can just gym tomorrow. But also, I've been wanting to talk about this. So, anyways, I was listening to a podcast about this called Food, We Need to Talk. It's actually kind of depressing when you take a look at the science and physiology behind losing weight. Your body is sadly working against you. Hormones like leptin, increased insulin sensitivity, ever-increasing fat cells, they don't disappear. They just get smaller when you lose weight and grow more as you age or overfeed, and overall genetics. So, I will just say this, the science behind this is shaky, because most of the stuff that they do, most weight loss studies are within 6 weeks. So this is something that's likely true within a 6-week period. But how is it 2 years down the line? Probably very different. Let's say you lost the weight, you keep it off for 2 years. Do you think that you're going to have that same increased insulin sensitivity or whatever else, which actually insulin sensitivity would make you less hungry? So they're probably thinking insulin resistance, maybe, because insulin sensitivity will make you full. So I don't know, that wouldn't be a bad thing. The fat cells thing, I don't know. They do say that, but it just seems weird to me, honestly. I know that's a weird thing to say, but it just seems weird that basically every single cell in your body dies, but fat cells don't. It just doesn't add up to me. I would really question it. Personally, I question it because it just seems like something people just kind of say, just like obesity is genetic, which a lot of scientists will say that too, which it very clearly isn't because our genetics don't change based on the diet that we eat. I guess you could argue maybe epigenetics or something, but regardless, it has enough plasticity to it that you can change it. So the way that it's talked about is not real. So I think there's a lot of times where people misunderstand science as well. There's just a lot of stuff around this that I don't necessarily agree with, and that I do think people push to try to gaslight you into saying it's impossible. So there's a lot of money in making you feel despondent about weight loss. Even when it's already hard enough on its own, there are a lot of people that are very interested in you staying overweight for financial reasons. And that also has to be talked about when we talk about the quote unquote science or physiology behind losing weight. So I want more studies looking at longitudinal, very, very, very long time, like being at a certain weight for 10 years. Do they really do studies like that? I don't think so. Are those fat cells still there 10 years later? I doubt it. 10 years is a long time. It's a long time. And people need to look at more long-term studies, and they don't. So I don't necessarily agree, because I will just say, for my anecdotal experience, my hunger is so much less than when I was bigger. Drastically less. When I'm going off the rails, I'm probably eating around maybe 4,200 calories. When I was at my biggest, I would eat 5,500 daily. Every single day. I could never do that. I could never do that now. So I know people don't like it a lot when you question science, but I just don't believe this because of what I've gone through, where my hunger is so much less. There's no way in hell I could eat 5,000 calories a day. I could never do that. I'd be exhausted with it. Which even that, it shows some brain shifts and things that have occurred as a result of long-term sustained weight loss. So I would really just say, really think about it critically and look at, again, getting your hormone issues resolved, for one. For two, look at your experience and what you're seeing within your sustained weight loss. Because I'm telling you guys, my hunger is nowhere near as much as eating 5,000 calories a day. I couldn't do it anymore. I'm currently eating 2,100 in a deficit, which means that my maintenance is 3,100. I couldn't eat 5,000 a day long term. There's no way. So I don't necessarily believe, either I don't believe it or I don't believe the way that it's interpreted, which that could be the problem too. It could be an issue of interpretation. So there's something off. That's all I'm trying to say with these kinds of thought processes. This is why it is truly a mental game first. I hate tracking. So I look at what I eat weekly and make small changes. Coke, no sugar, more fruits, more chicken, more salads, less chocolate, and snacking. I go to the gym every day. Even on a rest day, just walk on the treadmill. You will feel better for it. I've increased my water intake. More water means less other crap. I put a piece of grilled chicken with salad I eat a piece of grilled chicken with salad every day. I brush my teeth early to keep me from eating late. All the changes that should help. Just take it one challenge at a time. I'm a long way off. I lost 200 pounds and gained it all back. All of it. Oh my gosh. And I'm back at it again with the thought of doing it better this time. And even though it is harder and my body is working even more against me, I'm going to fight. We have no other body. This is it. Let's make this one count. You got this. So yeah, again, I'm really reading Toxic Ritualistic. There has to be with this. I'm sorry. This is very, very extreme. Losing 200 pounds and gaining it all back, that is automatic. E followed by the letter D, in my opinion. It's a very, very extreme amount of weight both ways. So again, I don't trust this person's interpretations of this. It's giving toxic ritualistic mindset. I don't trust this. It doesn't sound real. Okay. Let's continue. It gets easier as soon as you feel a difference. Give it a chance. Just one more day and another one. Okay. I think it does get easier. I agree. I think as you go down in levels of obesity, it is easier. But each era, so to speak, has different challenges. And a lot of people that are, again, in that toxic ritualistic headspace, they're addicted to the drama behind gaining and losing and gaining and losing. And I think for me, I'm having an issue where like I said, I feel very, very unstimulated by my current weight loss, where it's becoming so blasé that it's incredibly boring to me. And I'm used to it being like this major dramatic experience, which honestly it has been. I was not exaggerating this whole time. I wasn't. But now, just counting the calories, having some salt, getting a little hypo as we're getting closer to the winter. But it's nothing extreme. It's nothing I haven't dealt with like many times. It's nothing new. And even if there is something new, it's usually that it's less chaotic. Even today, my Scorpio moment, it's going away. And I'm becoming more calm again. And I'm just like, wow, I'm calm now. I'm boring now, I'm just kidding. But, I think there is a part of my brain that still has that legacy of toxic ritualistic where I still kind of, in some ways, I crave the drama behind it. And I didn't expect that. And again, it makes sense because the longer I'm out of it, right, and all this stuff and da 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 da, you kind of just reach these different phases and it's like, oh gosh, this is boring. Because I'm not really at an exciting point where it's like, oh my gosh, I look amazing, or like I'm really close to goal, or like all these things are happening for me, or like I'm really like almost there, you know what I mean? I'm really at the middle of the journey, like in this weird, boring stage. And I think that it's pivotal because this is such a time, not just in my experience, but I think in a lot of people's experiences, where self-sabotage becomes a major temptation. And I'm not going to do it. I've already done it so many times. If I want to have the drama of it, I can just relive it in my past. And maybe that's advice I could give to the toxic ritualistic people, or ex-toxic ritualistic people who have gotten past it. Just relive it in your memories. I don't need to do it over again. I've already done it. It's stupid. It doesn't do anything. And it's like, whatever. But that was something I always was doing in those years when I was in it. It's like my life was like an episode of The Biggest Loser. Like it was very dramatic. And it's not dramatic anymore. It's just like, oh, like these cargo shorts that I had in 2007 or 2008, they're getting too big now. The cargo shorts are going to have to go. And it's like, wow. So I think it's also kind of filling a void. Like, you have to kind of fill that void. And I've been doing that using work, which is not the best, but I kind of have to for practical reasons. But I'm doing it. I'm surviving. And it's like I'm not dying or anything. Like, I'm healthy enough to do it. So it's like that's kind of my goal for the rest of the year. And again, my job is physical, so I'm hoping that in combination with everything, ideally I'd get out of obesity by the end of the year or even going into January. Like by January. That would be amazing. You know, if I could keep it up, because then I can leave obesity behind and I can see what comes after. Like, what comes next? You know, what is it going to feel like? What is it going to be? You know, it's like I still have that sense of wonder, and that keeps me going too. You have to find stuff that's going to keep you motivated. These are the kinds of things that I can offer as a suggestion as I'm in that moment now where it's difficult. So, and let me know what kept you guys going. Those of you who have lost it and kept it off, let me know. Okay. No one has mentioned this, but I do not believe weight loss is one straight line. Sure, calories in, calories out works. When you zoom out and follow the trend, it should be downward overall. But hormones, activity level, food quality, and sleep quality are not the same day to day, especially if your mental state varies, such as with anxiety or depression. I take a relaxed approach and I find that weight loss is meandering. This is very real. This is very true, especially when you're really big. Like, especially when you're morbid, super morbid, very, very real. Very true. Super relevant during those phases. I shot down 14 pounds at first in my first 2 months, nearly 2 pounds per week. Then I plateaued and bounced between the same 3 pounds for 2 more months. Then I felt motivated and energized and lost an additional 2 pounds per week for an additional 8 pounds lost in a month and a half. Then I plateaued again, went up 2 pounds, went down 1, went up 1, until recently I got really focused again and lost another 2 pounds. Weight loss can be an ebb and flow. I go through periods where I don't fucking care, man, and it's all I can do to just make sure I get protein and water in me and maintain. Then other times I'm eating like a bird and eating below my deficit like it's nothing until I have a big maintenance day. Ebb and flow, always eventually down, but meandering in that direction. I agree with this for the most part. I definitely do. I will give it more of a structure. Like, I will break it down, and I have broken it down on this channel, where I've talked about the seasonal aspect of supermorbid obesity, where I talk about hypothyroidism and these kinds of things that do cause this sort of ebb and flow within a supermorbidly obese person. We also do discuss things like having a period, for example, that will also cause a fluctuation of appetite as well as weight. There's also going to be things like menopause that does affect it as well. There's a lot of things that will affect weight loss and appetite in these kinds of things. And I think it's important to consider those things as you're losing the weight because they are all relevant. But in terms of the most common one, your hypothyroidism, those seasonal qualities are very, very potent. And it's difficult in deep summer as you tend to burn more fat during that time. And a lot of the fat on you is inflammatory, we'll say. Typically, it's a lot of polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are harsh. It's very much like crude fuel versus saturated, I will always argue is better, even though a lot of people say it isn't. The science is shaky and it is honestly under huge challenge at this current moment. So I will continue to lean on that side of things where your saturated is better if your ratio is higher. Again, you always have ratios. But that fat, when it burns in the summer, it can make you really sad. It can make you bloat. It can make you hungry. It can make you feel a lot of things like that. And in the winter, it's the same, but it's more from the thyroid. So your thyroid hormone is less. It produces less. And so you can feel the same. You can feel bloated, depressed, tired, hungry. So when you're super morbidly obese, your best times of the year are going to be around the equinoxes. So going into like March through May, September through October, November, like these time periods. But not really November. It's kind of too late at that point. But I would say like September, October, it's easier. And March, April, it's easier. And then the months surrounding that, it's okay, but it's really hard towards the solstice times for those reasons. So you'll find a lot of people will be like, I'm going to start a diet, and they start in January. And then you go into the spring towards March and you have a hormonal shift. And it's difficult, and people perceive that even though it's subconscious, but they perceive it. And so they give up. They just drop off. And the same thing happens now too. Usually because during the solstice there's been such a difficult effort, whether it's in the summer or the deep winter, that by the time you get to that hormonal shift, you want to give up. So people have to pay attention, especially what I'm talking about here. It's especially relevant on a super morbidly obese level. Other levels, it's not as powerful. Morbidly obese, it doesn't speak as loudly. I've always said, I think in the morbid obese, the mental side is so much stronger. And most of it has to do with your mental health, in my opinion. And where you're at mentally becomes extremely important, because your body will physically react very strongly to your thoughts in a morbidly obese stage. So you have to be kind of careful. And then obesity is just kind of normal. It's more typical. It's like the typical journey. That's what I would say. I feel like I'm in a typical weight loss journey now, like the one you see talked about all the time. It's just normal. So anyways, this is just my thoughts. You guys can take it or leave it. Okay. Accepting you need less food for your entire life in a society obsessed with food is hard. No way around it. You have to totally accept you need to eat a whole lot less forever. It can be good stuff, just not a lot of it, or a lot of anything, because no one needs to overeat. We've glorified gluttony to normalcy. But you can and will lose it. It just takes time to adjust down. Don't worry, just reduce. So for me, I would say, again, really focus on your hormone health as well. Make sure you're not losing too fast. Make sure you're going to the gym. Make sure you're building muscle. Make sure you're active. These things help with satiety, and it's incredibly important to consider hunger. Don't just ignore hunger. Consider it. Get your electrolytes in. One of you guys, you really suggested this recipe of electrolytes that I'm probably definitely going to do this winter when I know I think it's going to get harder after obesity, because that's when you get to you got to really start working it off. I'm going to have to really up my gym at that time. Next year, I know I'm going to have to start going harder and probably more often. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I'm definitely going to need electrolytes. So I appreciate it. But it's we got to consider all these things. You have to. And people don't. And then they're like, gosh, I don't know why I failed at losing weight when I never considered my hunger. Because you should have been considering your hunger. There's nutrients lacking. There's hormonal problems that need to be addressed, either through a diet or a medication, or both. You might not be exercising, which again, people are like, well, exercise makes me hungrier. Exercise makes me gain weight. Exercise this, exercise that. Well, the science says that exercise doesn't really do much for your weight loss. It's just diet. It's 100% diet. No. The science, they look at stuff for 6 weeks. I'm talking about you go to the gym for a year, babe, and you tell me that your hunger isn't different after a year at the gym. It's going to be different. I don't care what the science, their 6-week study says. Let's look at a 56-week study, and you tell me how you feel after a year of going to the gym. I guarantee you, you will have less hunger. You will have more satiety. You will have less insulin resistance. You will have an easier time adhering to a diet. There's dopamine released at the gym too. Your brain becomes more dopaminergic if you lift weights over time. That helps. It's all there. You know, at the end of the day, we've known the answers the whole time. The answers are eat less, move more. And that is the simple truth. But you have to think about length of time, strategy, right? What kinds of foods make me feel satisfied at this time, even at this season, even at this moment. Think about that and be okay with shifting. If I had stuck to one macro profile this whole time, I would have quit a long time ago. And that was a huge mistake in my toxic ritualistic past, as I would always try to adhere strictly to a certain macro profile. I don't think it works for a lot of people. It doesn't help. And I'm talking more about the super morbid, the morbid. That's what I've gotten out of. I'm still working on the obese. I'm getting through it though. I am. So I don't know if it's a weird suggestion of just work all the time. Just constantly fill your time. Constantly keep busy, and you'll be okay. You'll get out of obesity. Because I think boredom is a major thing. And it's hard for me to rest sometimes, but I am learning to rest again. But it's a challenge sometimes at this stage. And in some ways, I'm lucky that I don't have a lot of money because I have a reason not to eat, and that helps me, but I can't depend on that forever. So I got to figure it out, you guys. And oh man, this journey has been one hell of a journey. Always be willing to shift. A mental strategy that works at one stage will not work through the rest of the stages. And you work with everything you've got. If you're poor, use it. If you're rich, use it. If you're single, use it. If you're in a relationship, use it. If you're this, if you're that, use everything in your disposal to help you towards your goal in your mind. Because that's what I've learned throughout this time, is using different leverages in my mind to keep me on track. Because it's not physically difficult anymore. For me, it's not. It's not mentally difficult for me anymore. It's more about motivation and apathy and managing that. So, again, my path out of obesity is probably going to be different from yours. But my path looks like really focusing on my money, really focusing on working, really focusing on other goals I have, including activism, as you guys know, and creating these leverages in my mind. Well, I don't need to eat more. I'm in a deficit and I'm fine. I'm still obese. I'm still fat. I don't need to eat that much, and I need to save money. It works. It's a logical reason. And fill your time. Fill your time. It helps. And I'm sure that it will be different once I'm out of obesity and I'll have to shift again. But that's what I found has helped me, is staying busy. Staying very busy. Because the boredom, you still have low dopamine in obesity. And it can be a killer for a diet because the boredom is real. That's my advice. Okay. It's all about habits. I don't think you can sustain long-term weight loss and maintenance if you just go ultra low cal and be hungry for a while. There are low cal, high volume foods. Also avoid sugar spikes in your system. Observe what makes you hungry and what keeps you satiated. It's a learning process. Also be more active. Get 10,000 steps every day. If you don't change your habits that got you into this place, there's no way you will sustain weight loss even if you get there. Interesting. So I agree with a lot of this. For me, as you guys know, I don't agree with the sugar spike thing, but I did have to avoid seed oils for quite a while to get satiated by sugar, and I do. So for me, that doesn't apply. I don't get that hungry eating sugar. I just don't. And that could be a genetic thing. I don't know. I'm not saying that's how everybody's going to feel, but I haven't felt that way since I got off the seed oils. I was off of it for 6 months and sugar started to make me feel full. So I think it just depends, I will always say, I still think when you have sugar issues, there's a hormonal problem because the body just views sugar as like a food source and you get full from it too. So if you're not getting full, I think there's something wrong. That's my opinion. You can take it or leave it. Either that or maybe you're just too inactive. Again, I've done a lot of things at the same time, but I wasn't exercising really when I was, when my satiety went up initially after that 6 months of being off of the seed oils. I'll never forget. I was eating marshmallows and I got full and I had to stop eating them. And I was like, what the? And it's been different ever since. So again, that was my experience. Maybe that won't be somebody else's. Maybe it's genetic. I don't know. But for me, I've had a lot of times where I wasn't satiated by protein, like not by high protein. Obviously, I needed some. Oh my gosh, if I didn't have any, I'd be like, be like dying. Instant death, basically, like day one. But there's a difference between having protein and having like high protein. And for me, a lot of times in the journey, having high protein, I would be hungry because I would need energy building foods. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand about, especially, again, I'm talking a lot about supermorbid obesity, but even now, like the stuff I learned then, it helps me now. A lot of losing weight is about energy. It's about energy formation. It's about how your body's producing energy, and you want it to come from thyroid hormone and less from adrenaline. But it can also come from adrenaline too. But regardless, you have to be developing some energy to lose the weight. And so if you're just dead tired all the time, there's something wrong. Does that make sense? And there's a lot of different pathways to fix that issue. But I just find so many people, they just don't even consider it. And it drives me nuts. And then they're just like, it's so hard to lose weight. It's so difficult. It's so this, it's so that. And it's like, yes, it's difficult because you're not addressing your hunger and you're not addressing your tiredness. That part is real. And then, yes, it's difficult because you have deep mental health issues where you're losing 200 pounds and then gaining it back. That's a very, very deep mental health issue that needs to be resolved. And I think that we just don't consider these things when we talk about obesity. We just don't. I hardly ever hear it. And it's hard because people want a prescription, but we are all genetically different. And so, for you, sugar might make you really hungry. And that might just be the way that you are. But it may not be. It may be sugar in combination with something else. Like for me, it was sugar in combination with seed oil. If I got rid of that, then it didn't matter anymore. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you have to look at like, what are the interactions of what I'm eating and how is it affecting me? And am I getting hungrier because of it? And if so, then I need to just adjust. Because I think so many people come at this whole thing from a mindset of, if I can't do this thing 100% perfectly, exactly as I should, exactly as what somebody else tells me, then I'm a failure, or I'm just having to fight my body. And you don't. Like, I've heard, like, a lot of the girly pops on my channel, a lot of you guys that are, you have PCOS, you've told me, like, I did keto and it was amazing for me. I've heard that a lot. I believe you. I do not believe you. I totally believe you. And it's like, that's great. You know, I think we need to normalize people just realizing that they need different macro profiles than each other, and at different times. And I think that that's hard for people to accept. And I think that's why it's one of the major reasons why this issue doesn't get better, because there are many paths to losing weight. There are many paths. And it's really important to consider it, to consider different paths. And you get on one and then you switch and then you do this. Like I said, I've had times where I've been high carb, low fat, high fat, low carb, high protein, low fat. Like, I've done all of it. I've done all the different iterations, and there'll be times where I'm like into that for a while. Like right now, I have been having sugar again this autumn. But in the summer, I wasn't. You know, in August and September, I wasn't having sugar because it was making me hungrier. It wasn't working for me. Now it's more satisfying, so I eat it now. You see, and if it makes me hungrier again later, then I'll stop it again. So it's like, you have to kind of think. I always talk about, think of weight loss as driving a car. You're gonna have to turn. You have to put the brakes on sometimes. You got to speed up sometimes. You have to strategize, like as if you're driving a car. That's really what it is. And I think there's just so much of a rigid mindset behind it in a lot of people's minds. And that's ultimately what makes it so difficult that it's impossible. Because it doesn't have to be that rigid. And I think that that's something I wish I knew when I was younger. I wish I knew that I didn't have to switch from high carb, low fat to low fat, high carb to vegan to keto. Like, I wish I could have known I didn't have to switch and enforce it. I could have just had a keto day and a vegan day. You get what I'm saying? And I probably would have been fine. Now, again, I'm hypo enough. I'm never going to have a vegan day. I'm never going to have a keto day at this point, because it does not help me. And I have to be very strict. But when I was younger, I probably could have gotten away with like that flexibility when I was less hypo. You know, and even in the future, when I am less hypothyroid, I could probably mix it up a bit more and it's not going to be an issue. So it's like, we have to think about things in a more flexible way, in a less rigid way. Because as they stated, it's really about calories in, calories out. So if you are doing okay with what you're doing, then just ride that until you shift a bit. And if you find the type of diet and it just works for you and that's it, then that's fine. You know what I'm saying? It's not an issue, but I think a lot of people are more like me and they need to shift things around a lot. And they feel like they can't. And so I'm here to tell you, you can. You can, and it will work. You will still lose. You will. Okay? Okay. All right. I think I said what I needed to say. I will talk to you guys again another day. Again, a lot of this stuff in this video is food for thought. might even be what I call it. It's just certain mindsets I have, certain things that I think about, certain things I consider, and definitely just see like where you're at. And if you're doing great, then keep on going. If you're not, then maybe consider a different perspective or consider eating a different macro profile for a while. But anyways, you guys, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I will be back. Talk to you later. Bye.